advisory.
Oh,
Just trying to think.
I don't have that list.
His name in my head.
Participants, I was gonna ask people to, do an introduction and.
To help them. So I said, okay.
We are recording, I'm not sure why it didn't say
You're not
so.
Well, I did earlier.
without hiring.
Yeah, somebody else was recording,
Oh.
Traffic, blah, blah.
but,
That was a half a
Okay.
million just to the law firm, just to get started.
Okay, I think we're good here, so I'll call the meeting in York County Clean Water Consortium to order, and I'd like to start with the introductions, just so we have on the record who all's here, so,
Lisa Middlestroke, Port of Morrow.
David Sykes, Small County.
Valerie Ballard, Morrow County.
Nick Ducote Consulting.
Matt Jensen, Morrow County Administrator.
Kelly Doherty, Port of Morrow.
Timber Mabbott, Morrow County.
Karen, you wanna give a shout out? Okay, City of Boardman, could you, introduce yourself?
Yep, Brandon Hammond, City Manager.
Debbie? Can you hear us, Debbie? Debbie Rady's here. And Debbie's note taker.
Debbie's got a note taker.
This is not AI running.
Okay, Grace?
Hello, Grace Donovan, Rural Engagement and Vitality Center.
Okay, Griffin, you wanna introduce yourself?
Griffin Beach, Elkhorn Media.
Okay, let's see, we got, Caleb?
Evening, everybody. Caleb Lay, Oregon Rural Action.
Okay, and Ronan?
Hi, Ronan Negloria with GSI Water Solutions. I'm a consultant with Morrow County on the Drinking Water Roadmap project.
Thank you. All right, we'll start off with our minutes from the October 15th meeting, as people have a chance to look that over.
I have a question on page 2 of 2. Under consideration of publicity and community outreach events, it says preliminary budget work estimates operating costs for the consortium to be between $300,000 and $350,000. Is that an annual operating cost for the consortium?
That's what I was going off of on the
Yes.
recording.
This group costs $300,000 a year to operate?
If we're looking at, post managing director, $100,000 for engineering consulting, $25,000 per grant. Any, additional public outreach starts at any kind of mailing publicity. That's what we're anticipating.
And so like the 100K a year for engineering would be recurring?
Possibly. If you're looking at the ongoing projects and identifying those kind of aspects, yes.
I'm just having sticker shock. I did read that correctly, so
Yes.
thank you. That was just my question, so thanks, Valerie. I don't have any other questions.
Okay, do I hear a motion to approve the minutes?
I moved that we approved the minutes as written.
Okay, with a second,
1 second.
and then moved and seconded, any further discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed, motion carried. Okay, we'll go right to our business, and we have an update. Ducati Consulting task, Nick, please.
Sure. So it'll be pretty short and sweet compared to lengthy PowerPoints, which I'm sure everyone will be happy about. I'll touch on the WRD well funding that we talked about. I emailed their group. Not only is it not open right now, but they just don't care about water quality. They only care about water quantity. So in order to qualify for that WRD well grant, homeowners would have to have a certified well inspector come on site and then testify essentially, or validate, certify, whatever it is, that the well is in decline. So that either it's a dry or that the levels are dropping. And it's not clear, even if we were able to find like a water quality issue that also overlaps with a water quantity issue, if they would even pay for whatever measures would be taken for quality. If it was kind of a, two birds, one stone situation, it might work out where you have a dry and declining well, and whatever the solution is for that would also, say just if we're going deeper and that could solve the problem for that well, it could maybe be a fit, but once again, it's a program that could be a fit, but not really for what we want it for. So it would be kind of a backdoor, way into that funding. So that one's kind of a strikeout. But I touch on that a little bit in that lobbying packet that we were kind of interested in, that little one page. I had some really good talks with the GEODC folks, so I met with them last week, and then I met with them this morning to talk about the potential to partnership on some of these loan programs where we need a qualified nonprofit. They have a loan officer there, Christina Smith, who's very well experienced in a lot of different kinds of loans and grants for private homeowners. So we talked about what a partnership would look like, what a sort of a win-win situation looks like for us and for them. And the gist of it is they're open to a partnership, they're interested, but they have a 10 to 15% administration fee, essentially. So if the grant's not going to pay for it, then someone would have to pay that fee for that to cover their labor and efforts for underwriting all that and doing all that paperwork. And then it's possible, depending on what kind of loan they have or what kind of loans they were underwriting, that they would also need a construction loan certification for their loan officer. So it could be some where they need some extra training or another person, depending exactly on what the program is. So we talked today about really mostly about the idea of creating our own revolving loan fund, because they're, as we talked about the last couple of weeks, the things that exist aren't very great options. For the most part, it's loans to people who are at 60 to 80% of the average median income, which is pretty low income. And to say that all we really have for you is a 20-year loan, for you to pay back every month. I think the consensus was kind of that wasn't super attractive. And the GEODC folks agreed that that's not a great pitch to make to the lowest income folks. So we talked about just really brainstorming what would it look like to create, essentially for the consortium to create a revolving loan fund that GEODC would administer. And, so the kind of the first step is, where does the money come from? And the least restrictive is going to be just local funds, right? Kind of the next least restrictive would be state lottery funds. You're able to get the state legislature to say, here's $1 million or $2 million to seed this revolving loan fund. We've identified who's going to underwrite it. And then we just have to write, what are the minimum rules required by whoever's giving the money, whether it's the state or the feds. And then we build another layer of rules over that, essentially, and it can relate to income limits of who gets qualified for the funding, how much funding can go to each homeowner, what kind of projects can be funded, how you have to certify that, you have an issue to begin with. And they talked about some of the different ways that they administer loans and grants to private homeowners. And there's essentially 3 ways. You've got grants, which are just, here's some money, go do the thing, send us a report that says you got it done according to the standards we set out. And then there's collateralizing loans. So this is something that they do pretty frequently for housing rehab projects, where essentially GEODC gets a lien against the property, but the investment that they make in the property gets paid off by the sale of the property or the death of the owner of the property. So it's kind of something where you just say, well, we're not worrying about this until I'm dead and I don't care, right? At least I get an improvement on my property. Or when it sells, the value of that gets paid back out of that.
Sort of like a reverse mortgage concept.
Yeah. And then kind of on the other end is just a loan where they're just paying a certain repayment every month or whatever the term is. It's a regular bill that they have just to pay back to the revolving loan fund. So somewhere in there, it's kind of a plethora of options. My thought is you know, you have some spectrum, some sliding scale of options that is probably dependent on income limits, you know, but also depends on how much money we're able to get for something like this. If it's really just a small amount of money and we've got a ton of homes that we need to work on, the grant funds are gonna, you know, the amount you can afford to grant out are gonna be fairly small. And depending on how the state wants to treat it, whether they expect their money back eventually, or whether it's just sort of given to this cause. There's a lot of different ways that could get cut depending on where the money comes from. And then the idea of, okay, once the money comes back in, what can we spend it on? Because that's another problem GEODC runs into, is they've got these dollars that have revolved, but now they have to rewrite policy to use the money that has revolved back in. Or with some of the collateralized loans, they're sitting on things that are 45 years old. So they said, if you do that, we would want our admin fee up front, because we don't, on that, they don't get their admin fee until the person dies or the property sells. And then the money comes back and then they get their fee. So like, we don't love that. You know, it doesn't really work for us. So depending on the funding instrument to the homeowner would also depend on what, you know, GEODC would want to administer those funds, just so that they're not negative on their cash flow, you know, on a program for 40 years or something. So that's kind of big picture. Well, I guess one other thing is, you know, the more oversight that's required on the loan, the more support that they have to provide, and the more help that they would need. Essentially, if it's a easy, quick, simple program, they can handle it and not have to hire anybody else. But depending on how complicated it gets and how many people are involved, and, you know, whether there's monthly bothering of people to pay and inspections and coordinating with contractors, I mean, it can get pretty intense. So depending on how that looks would depend on, you know, kind of that range of the 10 to 15% fee. And then also if they would need that fee in addition to more help to manage all that and make it work.
Do you think that that rate is standard, or we could find somebody at a better rate to manage that?
I think it's pretty standard, 10 to 15, and I think it would, I mean, you could maybe find a commercial lender who would donate their time, but I mean, that would be pretty tricky too. You'd have to find the right entity who would commit for, you know, a decade or 2 decades to manage the program for a fairly low fee.
I have a question. Did they have any sense of, I'm grateful that GEODC is willing to consider it, but I wonder if they or you or any of us have any sense of who might be interested in the loan option? And
As far as like the homeowners, what kind of homeowners?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Can we back up a little bit, because I'm already lost here and I apologize, but we don't even know what we're going to entertain to a homeowner that they might need to borrow. Am I wrong? I mean, what's the loan? What's the loan for? How much
Well,
is the loan?
yes,
But we're talking
that's a
about
big,
assessing a loan that we don't even know what it is.
that's a big part of it. And I think that's what GSI is working on right now, is like, what are some potential solutions for these domestic well owners? When it comes to a one-off solution for your well, I don't know what those solutions are, and I don't know what they would cost. So that we're kind of running in parallel, but you know, at the point that we don't really know what we're doing for these homes, it is hard to say. Beyond that, we know we want to focus it on the well or the drinking water supply, right? And the quality of the water. And that's about as far as we get, right? Whether deepening will work, whether a filtration system would be allowed, you know, there's lots of little things that hopefully GSI is working on.
So,
Experience, Kelly, on well owners that are drilling their wells deeper. I know someone, and I think I said this before, off of Paul Smith across the canal, $20,000 to deepen their well.
I've heard between 20 and 25, 30, depending on.
So what are we really gonna put the burden on the homeowner for? Are we going to try and offer them the $20,000 to do that? Are we expecting to just Cause they don't need us if they just need to go get a loan for $20,000. They don't need us in the middle of that.
Well, I mean, you could offer 1% versus 4, 5, 6, 7%, depending on what kind of loan instrument they can access. If it's a HELOC loan, you're gonna be paying a pretty penny. But if you've just got a revolving loan fund of 1%, low terms, you know, you push it out 20 years or something. I mean, you can make the terms a lot more favorable than a bank. For the higher.
If anyone needed a loan at all, or maybe you were gifting that amount. We don't know that yet.
Mhm.
All right, I have a question about how you fund the revolving fund. In your experience, okay, so, because you're talking private, probably private grants for this, correct? Is that what you mentioned?
I mean, honestly, I think the state legislature, I don't, there's not private foundation grants to capitalize revolving loan funds to loan private well owners.
Okay, I guess I
as
misunderstood.
well as.
But nonetheless, you're, how would you go, okay? How much are we going to need? Do you need? I mean, we don't know at this time how many wells or how much anything.
Mhm.
Do you go to them with a concept, an estimate, or do you have to wait to, okay, we get this many wells, let's ask for this grant money, and then again, or do you go and say, okay, we estimate we're gonna need this amount and get the revolving fund stocked with money, so to speak? What's the best option for you? Or how would that be, might look at that? How would you look at that?
I mean, I would say you know, if you were to go to the state legislators and say, all right, we need this money to capitalize this program, it's a brand new program. They're probably not gonna wanna throw a ton of money at it. But it could be something where you say, you know, we've got a pilot program. We know that, these well projects are gonna cost typically between $10,000 and $35,000. We've identified, and this is where what GSI is doing is really gonna help, right? Is because I don't, and that's what I talked to the GEODC folks about today, is I don't know how many really bad wells there are, right? Of certain levels, but that, when we start getting into some of those numbers, and especially where, GSI has kind of geographically said, you know, the ones that are close to cities obviously wouldn't be our priority to work on their wells, right? Probably our priority area is gonna be where it's simply not an option to extend public water systems at all, right?
Right.
And we start there, and yeah, how many are there? I don't know.
Well,
Is it
Ronan
20,
is-
30, 250, 1,000?
Ronan and Caleb is on my note too.
Yeah, Ronan, do you have an estimate of, we've been referring to them as outliers. I mean, they're typically even outside of the focus areas. If we were trying to have a ballpark number for wells that are so far outside of a remotely feasible proximity to one of the cities that, and they do have poor drinking water. Do you have a rough estimate? And is that not something that you'll be able to, quantify in your final report next summer?
Yeah, we don't, I mean, I don't have the numbers off the top of my head, but in terms of like being able to generate the sort of account of those
Mhm.
wells that fall in that situation, we could definitely do that, and we'll have that pulled together. I think the way I'm seeing it playing out is, you know, we've got we know where wells are generally and the concentrations and things, right? So we can classify, does point of use treatment work here or not? So that's one sort of assessment that we would do. The other assessment would be a combination of what's the proximity of this particular household to other households, and does it make sense to do sort of a community or shared system versus this residence can only be kind of its own, or maybe a small couple, 3 connections. So there's different scenarios you can kind of play around with how many residences are you going to connect to this one system. So there's those kind of scenarios, things that we'd be playing around with. And then the thing that has been brought up on, several occasions of like getting the residents to participate and understand what their preferences are. So it's a combination of the water quality data that we've got, proximity to other residences, and then homeowner preferences or well owner preferences is sort of how we would package up what solutions might make sense for these different parts of the Guama. And we could do an easy count of we know where or generally know where the wells are and where the residences are. So it's a matter of sort of packaging up the different combinations of these. And that's what we're gonna be working towards over the next couple of months.
Well, you said that you wouldn't have that until next summer though, correct? And the reason I'm asking that is, once so you wait a year or whatever. And then how long does it take for the state to fund it? If you were trying to speed the process up, would you be able to get and go to the state with an estimate before your final and get the ball rolling there,
Yeah, I think we could.
Sometimes it take, the state takes it. How long is it for this other grant? We got a year and a half? Or I guess,
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Ronan.
I was gonna just say that, our project or contract ends next summer, but in terms of coming up with like an inventory and groupings, we could come up with something. We'll come up with something before then because it's sort of we'll build up to the final deliverable. So I'm scheduling probably late first quarter of 26 where we could have an inventory like that.
Don't we have a pretty good idea of how many wells there are currently and that are bad? And then we know that there's close by 100 in the West Glen project. I don't know how many more additionally, maybe you have that number handy in the Estegard area. And from that, wouldn't we be able to say, here we have this many outliers and, if we do the math, for $1 million, you can drill 40 wells.
I think.
Yeah, we could do the math in that kind of rough, kind of high level without locking in, right? Sort of like getting rough estimates of how many wells might fall into this sort of single point of use option versus small community or get a very small system kind of option. We could come up with that pretty easily. And the other thing I was thinking about was the consortium is really only around Morrow County, right? So
Morrow County, yeah.
we could develop that quicker, but we'll probably, by January, we could come up with something like that, where we got a meeting with a steering committee in December and we'll be working towards that.
Just in terms of the scale, Ronan, the ballpark you and I had talked about before was between 300 and 500. Now that's a big difference for just Morrow County. And that's exempt wells in Morrow County with high nitrates. And of those, you back out those areas that are, say, the West Glen and areas that, at least in terms of the research project, we're researching options to connect to a municipal system, and that may.
And they may or may not want that.
That's exactly right, yeah.
And that may give this group an idea, but does Nick feel confident going for money from the state using that method?
Well, I'll point this back to you,
Yeah.
because you guys will be the point people for your state legislators. So,
Right.
we'll put it together ultimately, but yeah, I don't think we need, the summer drill down absolute numbers. I think we need a range of like, 75 to 150 to 200, and then, and not everyone's gonna use it, so it's not gonna be 100%. So if we could go to the state and say, hey, we've identified 150 to 200 wells that we think are gonna need work, and we would like to get, funds for half of them, and just see where that goes. And because we still have to develop the program, make the rules, put in partnerships, and there's a ton of work to do before you even start loaning the funds out. And like we see with the West Glen funds, it's gonna be what, 2027 before the lottery bonds are sold. So it takes 2 years, once you even get the funds from the state for them to sell the lottery bonds, and then actually, the revolving fund wouldn't be capitalized until like 2028. you know, when we'll obviously have more information by then. And that gives you a lot of time to set it all up. But I think, you know, we were talking with Kirby Garrett this morning. He emailed us.
I talked to him.
Good. And that's the port's DC lobbyist guy. And he was wondering kind of what's on the radar for next year for funding. And I said, well, that's what we're trying to figure out. So, you know, I think it would be good if it seems the consensus of everyone is moving towards this revolving loan fund. So I think it may make sense in January and February to start talking with some legislators during the sort of state capital request circus that, hey, we've identified somewhere where we could really use some help.
I know that one thing that I'm not down with is anybody mortgaging their house for this project. And I don't think they're going to be, you know, in favor of that whatsoever. I don't even think we should ask, to tell you the truth. But Caleb, do you have, I know you've got numbers in your head. Do you have those kind of numbers that we're talking about how many wells in Morrow County? Off the top of your head?
Yeah, going off the OHA data, 667 have been tested in Morrow County. 296 are over 10 milligrams per liter. So outside West Glen, if that 102 count is correct, that'll be 565 wells tested at least, and 194 contaminated that are outside that West Glen area. And you know, it's probably a modest undercount.
So if we said 200, ballpark 200.
But those aren't gonna be all outliers.
Yeah, because he took out the West Glen.
No, well,
There are
I
other,
thought there were other options besides just outlier and West Glen. And
well,
community water system, wasn't there or not?
There's some by Irrigan, I mean, there's some that could potentially be co-op systems.
Mhm.
But I think if you take the ones that could potentially be co-ops and you just lump those in, you get at least kind of a top figure, right? And it sounds like the top figure is probably around 250 at most. So then you say, all right, what if we say we're gonna try to tackle 125? Well, if it's $30,000 per well, I mean, you think about $3 million, right? So, I think that's where, the conversations with the legislature is just gonna be important. Maybe they say, you know, you needed 3 million, you asked for 3 million, but, this is a brand new program. How about 500,000? How about you get it started and show us the results? And then maybe we come back to it the next year. And then the next year. So-
5 million. There's your 200 and.
one enterprise zone agreement.
Right.
I mean,
Or you could change your enterprise zone agreement.
That's true.
we didn't change the last one that we did.
Just saying.
But, you know, that was, I don't, did I do that?
Yeah,
on
I
200
mean, I
or
think
five?
$5 million is doable.
Yeah.
Even if we had to use that to set up a revolving loan fund and still pursue state funding, in the future.
Just capital money.
Yeah, yeah.
So ultimately, if it's a loan, the idea is eventually you get the money back, you know, and then a public entity can really push that out a lot further, you know, than a private entity is gonna want their, you know, their flush back.
Right.
I don't think that we want to see, I don't think we want to be, well, I'm just speaking for me. I wouldn't want this group to have to be involved with a revolving loan fund with a 20-year payback from anybody.
Me neither.
Because I think we need to get projects done.
Yeah, hopefully at that time it's done deal, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, Aaron, had a question.
Couple things. First is, Lisa points out a good point, and we'll come up with some other money. When you look at from a legislative standpoint, if you're gonna put some seed money, you're not gonna see any money from the state legislative after selling bonds or whatever until 29 or 30. Because you don't go out until 27 and they don't sign and die until in June. And you're gonna start the work next year, but they don't go into session until February of 27 for the biennium. And then if you get money, then you're 2 to 4 years out before you see any money. You gotta understand that. You gotta have some other pot. Otherwise, it's gonna be farther out. The other one, I'd have a question that Lisa, you mentioned about somebody you knew that was looking at drilling a well.
No, they did it.
They did it?
I've got a copy of their bill.
Okay, but here's a question so you guys can think about. If it was a state or especially if it was a bank, what's the risk? Can you guarantee if you go down another 100 feet that you're going to have good water? Ooh, that risk is high. Who's gonna roll that dice if you're gonna go a 20-year note, even a 10-year note? I'll tell you what. Maybe you're gonna have to.
But Aaron, we don't have choices on that.
I know,
You've
but
got
you've
so
got.
many, you've got so many homes.
Decision and we're gonna take that risk on and we've got.
We're not taking that risk. We're not taking that risk.
No, I think
No.
we're trying to secure.
We're not, but not everyone's
third
gonna
party.
be able to hook up to a public system.
Oh,
A lot of these homes are going to have to do something with their well or a filter. And we haven't even talked about filters today and what percentage can really be taken care of with that, but no one can make any guarantee on somebody's well, ever.
That's why I think we've got to look at some other alternatives like filter or something. It's just drilling a well, there's no guarantee. And that's a lot of money for what?
Well, I'm curious with the example you gave, is there water cleaner now? Have they retested?
Yes, yeah, they're
Okay,
good.
and but that's gonna be hit or miss,
300
right?
feet.
I know.
Sometimes it might work, sometimes it might not.
It's Carl Hempstead.
Oh, yeah, I did talk to them.
Yeah, it was $19,000.
Well,
Maybe
Ronan-
300 feet deeper or
I'm not
not
sure.
300.
I'm
She's
not
not
sure.
sure. I can ask.
Hey, Ronan, if you drill a well,
Not
you
sure.
call it a test well, or you could just call it a well on one property
Might.
and it works good. How far could you go a mile away and it wouldn't work? Or is there?
Are you
a
asking
general
if,
area in which, when you get a good well, that the
Mm-hmm.
likelihood of other good wells is very high?
I think there's a little bit of unique situation here, right? Because the data that we're seeing is it's pretty, whether it's by proximity laterally or by depth, there's a lot of changes within proximity of each other. So the point that Aaron raised is something that actually we're looking at. So the concepts that we're developing includes deepening a well or making the well improvement, and that's one cost, and that's one part of the implementation. It's sort of like part A, and then we're going to be always including a part B in that solution where you're including a treatment piece so that you can kind of see, okay, if in this case it's just you're deepening a well, this is what it's going to cost, this is what it's going to be implementing or what's going to require to implement it. And then on top of that, you may and most likely will want to have treatment in there, and we'll be including that as part of the concept development, because I think you've seen in the data, wells that are within a few hundred feet of each other, you see these different results, right? And just the history and the way the Lobguamas conditions are, there's a nitrate sort of in a lot of the area, so you never know long term what you're going to find. So that's kind of our approach, is we're developing these concepts where there's treatment sort of as a part of the solution, regardless of where you're at and when and where you are in the Lobguama.
Have we figured out if that treatment process for perhaps a whole house filter, is that something that's been approved at DEQ for septics? Has that question ever been answered?
Oh, because it's like 4 times the water use.
Yeah, we're looking at
Filter requires 4 times as much water. to
Yeah.
Oh,
go
it
through
cycles constantly.
Oh, yeah, okay.
mhm.
And so then your septic is approved on your square footage of your house and that kind of a use. So you have, 4-bedroom house, you have to build this big of a septic system, and then it just runs.
And I'm a city kid, so forgive me. Doesn't that just mean they have to empty their septic more often?
No, that's just buildup. So you're just running water through it.
You're
Okay,
just using that
okay.
much more water.
Okay,
When you clean your septic system out, you're actually taking out the solids.
thank you. Okay.
So is there like a meter on the?
Oh, I wish.
Oh, I
Okay,
wish,
so
no,
meter.
because exit wells are
Somebody put
completely
the one-
You don't wanna
unregulated.
go there.
We should put one on Bryce as well to see what it actually, what it
Oh,
runs,
that'd be interesting.
because it runs constantly.
Okay.
Because, and we have one at home also, and it constantly
Cycles
filters
through.
Yeah.
This is Debbie.
And-
Is there other options besides going into the septic? Because I've heard people are not going into the septic with that, but I don't know if that's factor. So,
You mean like a gray water system?
yeah, I don't
A lot
know.
of the older homes have gray water systems. However, I don't know how legal they are.
They're gonna have to, will be.
Yeah.
Lot of the homes out there have gray water where your wash machine, your dishwasher, your sinks, your showers do not go into your septic. But how legal they are, I don't know.
Wow.
Well, and that's where I think in this process, because every home and every system is gonna be unique, there may have to be some sort of engineering check-in of let's get someone to look at this and actually determine, like, you know, maybe you have an engineer that signs off on the solution, right? And says, well, we think this might work, or we think the best, maybe not even we think this might work, but this has the best likelihood of success. Cause that's kind of where we're gonna end up, is sometimes, you know, deeping well might not work, but it might seem to be the best option. So all of us not being technical experts, that's part of this policy that you build, right? Of how does this money get used? How do we certify different solutions that we're gonna spend money on? So it's definitely complicated and there's more questions than answers, but I think we just have to kind of start brainstorming and see where we end up.
Okay, anything else on, revolving fund?
I just have one question. Nick, does GODC need a final answer, or they know we're looking at it? So, I mean, to scale the project, it's gonna take a little bit of time. Like Ronan said, maybe end of January, February or so, we'd have at least a ballpark, so it might be 200, and then yeah, it would take them a while to set up the program and take us a while to figure out where those funds came from.
Yeah, I think so. I kind of how we talked through it with GEODC is that, you know, the very first step is deciding where's this money coming from? Because that is gonna determine a lot of the rules of how the
Sure.
money gets used.
Sure,
If it's
sure.
federal money, it's gonna have a ton of rules.
Yeah.
If it's, you know, if it's just local CREZ dollars, it's probably not gonna have a whole lot of rules, but
Okay.
it's still gonna have some attached to it, right?
Pretend I didn't say that yet.
Local contributions from wherever.
Thank you.
So I think that's the first part, is to decide, you know, are there local funds to tap? Do we want to start a very small pilot program, if there's a small amount of money that may be available to the consortium? Do we want to wait for a bigger chunk and tranche to kind of start moving towards that? Do we want to go to the legislature and ask them? You know, I think if we want to make an official ask of the state, then we should put in motion with GEODC some negotiations, and we're starting to put like an MOU together, and, you know, what is this relationship gonna look like? And just make sure we're all on the same pages, because they really understand the ins and outs of loaning out money that in a way that I don't, and what they need, you know, as loan officers to do their job.
Let me ask you this, in your past experiences, have you gone for quite a few private type grants applied?
Yes, but almost never for infrastructure, not for like water and.
No, and I'm speaking more of the process. Is it better to go and ask for a large ask, or to come back and, you know, well, we need more, you know?
I mean,
Try to get as much as you can the first go around, and then rather than, and because you see what I mean, then you could.
I mean, I think really how I would encourage, I think the best approach, and this is a novel approach, so there's not a whole lot of examples of, you know, I mean, even the GEODC folks are like, you know, we haven't started a ton of revolving loan funds, like everyone's gonna be learning a little bit through all this. But I think the best way to do it is to get this partnership solidified as much as possible, and to show that there's a plan, there's guardrails, we know who we're gonna try to help, we know around a range of how many people would be eligible, and then to go to the different funders and just try to piece together as much as you
And
can.
ask for a specific amount or ask how much can you give?
Well, I think with the state, it's gonna be
No, I
different
was
than
talking
like
about
the
private.
private folks. Yeah, I
Private.
think with the, with the private folks, it could be as simple as, we're looking at $10,000 to $30,000 per home. How many homes would you like to help?
Oh, that's
And-
good. Okay.
So try to kind of flip it around on them. And, every little bit helps, but more helps more.
Yeah.
And, depending on who the funder is, they may or may not want their back slapped and publicity and, all that. And that's a whole nother.
Well, yeah,
realm,
but
right?
that's optional to do that, right? I mean, they don't have to get their back slapped in their publicity, but if they do, you could make it that way, right?
I mean, some
You can
some
go either
folks
way,
like to
right?
give more money if they get more headlines.
Well,
I mean, that's how some people work.
There's some
but-
headlines, right?
Yeah.
All right. Anything else on revolving?
That's it on the revolving loans for me.
Anything else?
And I guess as far as next steps, on this, where would you like me to go with this? Do we want to engage GEODC a little more formally? Have them come to the next meeting? Just have maybe a meeting with me and Matt and them to start talking about an MOU or how to push this forward? What would you guys like to see from me on that?
For me, I think we need
I think
to,
we're ahead. Go ahead.
yeah, I think we need to understand the scope of what we're talking about. Are we talking 50? Are we talking 250? And if Ronan, wasn't writing notes, but if you said late first quarter 2026, so is that, you said January, but is that more like March where you might have those numbers? Ballpark numbers of the outlier homes that would need some capital for either a new well or a more robust treatment system. When do you think you would have that more firm estimate?
I think we could have some preliminary sort of estimates in late January, and then we'll be refining it, over the course of the next couple of months.
Okay. It seems, I mean, it's your call, but it seems like rather than just shooting in the air, we need a little bit of a.
Would it make a difference to GODC, the size of what you're asking?
I think
If
so.
they approve, if they bought into it and said, yeah, we'll help you with this and start the preliminary talks with this, you mentioned 50, 100, whatever. Would that make a difference on whether they would take the project on or agree to do it?
That's not really what they said today. It had more to do with the complexity of whatever they were gonna have to administer. The more, if it was a simple thing and they're getting their 10%, they, they're like, we're ready to jump in and help as much as possible. But, if it's some complicated federal money that requires monthly check-ins and billing and keeping up with everybody on the, 30th of the month to make sure they paid their monthly bill, then they're gonna need more help. So some of it just has to do with how complex we wanna make the program. And the more flexible the dollars are, the simpler you can make it, right?
Well, and then also your notes here, if they're looking at bringing on an FTE, they're not gonna bring on an FTE to issue 20 loans, but they might for 100 or 50.
Mm-hmm.
And I haven't been involved in GEODC in quite a while, but I seriously doubt if for any term they're going to lend money to a homeowner without a UCC filing against the property,
The UCC filing?
for a lien, basically.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, it's either gonna be the collateralizing or some sort of. Yeah, some sort of lien or.
Yeah.
I think
Peace.
that's just a bad idea.
Yeah,
Also,
I think I do agree, and I think it's great that you reached out to them, but I think we've got a while before we need to pursue that until we need to start parceling out, our areas and what the solutions are going to be.
And I
That's
think,
what GSI is working.
Yeah.
I think as Nick was going through and kind of vetting out different sources, realizing there's limited options. So if we have to come down to a point where it's like, we can't give you money outright, which would be the preference, if we can come in and say, here's $20,000, we got it from Prez or wherever it is. then that's a fix. If we can't do that and there are limitations on it and we have to show it comes back into the system, this is revolving fund is a funding option. It's not always the best, like you said, mortgaging a 20-year mortgage for this, that can leave a bad taste, but it's a tool that could be used. Might be a tool of last resort.
And we were talking about half the price of a car payment.
Yes.
I mean,
Josh was
It-
talking about,
it doesn't have to be a 20-year loan, or if they're hooking up to a public system, they're probably not. I would assume that we were covering the installation.
Yeah.
Of that hookup.
Are we counting on the payback of the loans to make the system work, to finish it out for the rest of the affected properties?
We
To
don't
me,
know.
the payback of the loan just depends on whoever capitalizes this revolving fund, do they expect to ever get their money back? If the answer is no, and it can just be a grant, then, you know, you guys could just grant out funds,
Sure.
and you don't have to work.
Yeah.
The private givers, the private.
where I'm at.
givers,
Yeah.
Is you wouldn't necessarily approach them with the revolving fund option, because they would not expect to get their money back. You're just gonna say, okay, you're gonna help X number of, you know, it's not, we're gonna get you your money back. We're asking you to loan this money. We're asking you to give this money. On the government, federal, that are expected to give it back.
And what I'll try to do too, because my other thought is like, you know, let's take this large area and then can we get any sort of idea of income levels in some of these unincorporated areas and just, you know, what if you were to say this certain level qualifies for a grant, this qualifies for a loan, where would we set that number, you know? Because if you have limited grant funds, you do want to incentivize those to be spent towards the lowest end of the income spectrum, right? And then work your way up with those grant funds. So just how you structure that if it's all grant, I think will just be a little tricky, just to make sure it goes to the right people first. And then you kind of work your way up the income statement.
Okay, so what's our instructions to him? Start
No,
exploring
just
or
say
hold
now.
off?
Okay.
It sounds like wait until January.
No, that was
is the
enough.
next step.
Okay, just wanna make it clear. Okay,
Is that what I'm hearing is we'll just wait until January, circle back, get some information from GSI and then.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect.
okay.
So just three other quick things here in my update, reached out to Portland State and just started talking about the potential Oregon income survey. Again, it's a place where we don't really have the information we need to move forward on it, but they're available, they wanna help, so whenever we're ready to move forward on that, let's reach out to them
What's
again.
their, sorry to interrupt, I weren't sure, what's their advance time? I mean, would we need to we'd need to get them 30, 60, 90 days?
It takes a while with their contracting. Right now, she emailed me just like 3 months ago and said, we don't have any income surveys. You know, you don't have any income surveys we can get working on. So it also depends on how many they're doing at one time.
Okay.
But it can take like 60 to 90 days to get the contract through the Portland State legal.
and we
department.
needed that, remind me why we needed that.
That was for potential block grant eligibility
grants,
for
okay.
Oregon and the outlying areas.
And some low interest loans also are income based.
Mhm.
So that's only if they're hooking up to city system. If they were doing an independent system,
Wouldn't matter.
Conceivably, you could use it. the same
There
way
wouldn't-
you established.
Well,
okay.
yes and no, you wouldn't do an area-wide survey to qualify individuals. The individuals, if it was a home by home thing, they would just say if GEODC was administering something and they had to income qualify, they would say, give us some tax documents and we'll, it's like you go to the bank and they're gonna wanna see some documents to check that box to say your adjusted gross income is above or below a certain level.
Okay.
Whereas the income survey is a little more. But when you do the income survey, there's no record of individual people. Like you can't get into that data
Right.
and pull out one home and define that.
But if it was the city, it would include all the current city residents.
Yep, it would
As
go-
well as
The whole current city and the outlying area.
And if it
that
was
we
an
wanted to
independent
serve.
system, it would just be that area.
If it
you
was an
can-
independent system, yes, it would just be the homes that it's serving.
Okay.
But you can also carve out neighborhoods like we did in Umatilla.
Right, and then you
That-
add that to the overall city system. So like Power City and Brownell got added to the city of Umatilla County.
Yeah.
Right, but the income survey was just for that Power City community.
It included all the city too, because the whole city had to qualify.
Okay, and then they carved out,
Brownell got carved out, I think, later to add in, because it was only like 20 homes.
what about
So
Power City?
Power City got included, I think, in the original survey, and then Brownell got added in with a memo.
Okay.
That's what I remembered from that last discussion, is it was the whole city.
So that's that, and then Carrie, you wanted, it's a real rough draft, but it's kind of a one-page, describing the problem of all of these grant funds and loan funds that, kind of all the things we talked about where the WRD one doesn't apply and this program doesn't apply and this program doesn't apply, kind of goes through what the problems are with these different funds and then some proposed solutions. So this is just my,
Are these solutions that we have under our control?
so it's like things to complain about to your legislators is basically the gist of it.
Well, I would myself, I would just having that sent to us rather than discussing it right now. That's just my thought.
It's in the back of it.
And honestly, that's a really good point. If we knew just the little tweaks to our program that might make it more accessible, that would be great to know.
Right, so like one of the solutions is just take this WRD well fund and target it to water quality issues. Like take an existing program that has all this stuff and then, but don't just care about water quantity, let's also care about water quality from this specific program.
Like they did the wildland fire, they added, did something like that.
Yep.
Yeah, or these grants that
Yeah, something like that, right?
only could go to people, Because actually, I was thinking about this, they always say that the water is owned by the public. So, maybe you could stretch that so far as to say, this is public because the water is actually owned by the public. If that makes any sense.
But access to water is a private investment. So it's the water
We can
right.
stretch it.
Maybe, I like your creative.
How many programs there do you have? I mean, how many instances?
Let me start taking a look at it.
And my thought was, if you,
It's kind of targeted at,
how many?
the well, it's kind of targeted at, we're trying to help these domestic well users and we can't find a good fit. Here's some examples of programs, here's why they're not a good fit. Here's some changes that could be made to either existing programs, new programs, or, a legislative funding priority. So. But we'll take it back from you when you're done.
Yeah, I'll
It's
get
on my
it
notes,
back.
right?
Okay,
That's all for me.
that's all, okay. Thank you. All right, next up is our budget update discussion, the Matt.
So as we looked at this, wanted to give an update. During our last meeting, we talked about just if there was restrictions, Kevin Ince brought up that there was some restrictions on the CREZ funding and the other items that we've received. He has double checked the award letters for all three of the CREZ disbursements that we have. They are all limited to capital improvements projects. This is similar to the, funding that they give to WICBED and other ones that it's restricted to capital. In order to complete a budget, we're just still looking to see what we can do. We currently, the monies that we have that are available for operational contingencies and considerations is $120,000 a year, which is based off report in the county's contributions. And as you picked up in the minutes, this also talks about it. We're looking at somewhere between $300,000 and $400,000 for operational costs on an annual basis. In order to complete the budget, we have to look at where we're going to come up with those amounts. And I outlined three different options. One is to increase partner contributions. We'd have to at least double the contributions to make it somewhat feasible on that. Second option is to formally request an amendment to the CREZ award letters to allow some some operational considerations there. And so we'd have to go through the formal option with that with the CREZ. The other one is the outside one where we still have the SCP award that hasn't been finalized, whether we go and we make sure that there's operational consideration on that aspect. That'd be, you know, both the second and third options are one-time money, kind of get us set up going there. But what we're looking at from staff side is board direction and discussion on how we should proceed in order to make sure we have operational funds to take care of engineering. Even the next item, which is strategically placed for the managing director, so we can consider how to proceed with those and take care of business. And so with that, I'd ask for discussion and direction by the board on which of those three options we should best pursue.
I say we go to the press board, but is that something that's normal, Lisa? Because I know that press money is used for operational things all the time. And especially the nonprofits or the, wherever that money goes. I understand that, and if you read the CREZ stuff, it does say capital improvements. But
Yeah,
I don't know
I
how
was
much
questioning
that's.
that at first, but I think we probably did say that
And
on those.
And I do know like the monies that's attributed to WICBED, because I sit on that board. They specifically only use the CREZ funds for capital projects. They use other donations, some from the county and other entities to provide their operational.
And honestly, those funds are not restricted.
I know,
All they
but for
do
some
is
reason they draw that
they
line
tell
pretty
us
hard.
What they use, what they want, you
Yeah.
know, what their intention is for the next year, and then they tell us how they use the funds.
So with that, I mean, while it might be past practice where it can be sloshed between operational capital, our fiscal agent with Kevin Ince is asking for clarification before we can fully
That's fair.
finalize the budget on that.
That's fair, and the SEP funds, same way, I would really love to get our hands on that money before it's all spent.
Mhm.
So some of that is set aside, some of that is whatever the balance is at the time that we take the funds, so.
Does that have to be for capital or could that be operational, the SEP money?
I think it's a variety, I don't think it's restricted.
We just need to,
Yeah.
well, you and DEQ
Right.
would need to agree on.
I mean, right now, it's being used for outreach and plastic bottles of water.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And a lot of admin at Oregon Health.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you get that money coming, Lisa? How do you say, we'll take it?
I think I need to call and ask that question.
Okay.
But I think we need to be able to say, we've got a project, this is what we're using it for. Because part of that is,
How about, do we have operational costs? Can we use it for that?
I would think so, but I don't know the answer.
Hey, Lisa, isn't there terminology in OHA and DQ? When they get money from us, it's for community benefit, and then they try to hone it in, but I think we just stay behind the word community benefit. It gives you a broad that we could do almost anything.
Yeah, but this was pretty specific, that SCP was
Yeah.
written with very specific.
Yeah.
things that you could-
In the agreement.
Yeah,
Yeah, I haven't looked at it in a bit, but
Yeah.
I think we were lucky to get them to
there was
designate.
testing and water and there was just that limited scope of what we could spend it on and what they could, more, what they could
I'll
spend it
have
on.
more information on that. I can send it out before the next meeting, but I'll get that gathered.
What do you think on the CREZ thing, Lisa? Do you think they'll reconsider the award letters? Who would we go to? The CREZ manager?
Yeah, we could ask him.
He's here, he happens to be here.
Sure. Yeah, you know, I've seen a lot of things it's spent on, just like she says, you know, and it never, that part never comes up. on how
No,
it's
it
spent.
doesn't.
But, I mean, it comes up with the grants to the cities, I think, more than,
Everyone that we give money to, we get a report from it.
no, we get a report, but whether they're aware of the fact that what it should be spent on. It seems to me that this, well, I don't know.
Well, they know. I mean, they tell us what they intend
Yeah,
to
they,
use the money
oh, yeah,
for.
they tell us. Yeah,
Even the schools do that.
yeah,
But
they tell us.
do we say, oh, you didn't use this properly? We
No,
won't
yeah.
give you money
Is there
next time.
something in the CREZ, the bylaws of the CREZ that stipulate, I kind of remember reading it, but is there something in that bylaw that says that it has to be capital
I
improvements?
don't know, I don't remember.
So why is it written that way? Who writes the letters?
It's probably based on what the board approved. Kevin probably just used the language of what the board
The
approved.
board has never approved specific.
I've never heard the board approve that.
Yeah,
They
it's,
grant money, they just grant.
he pulled the copies of the award letters.
Who wrote the
specifically.
award letters?
I don't have that. I apologize. I can shoot that to
I
you.
don't remember it ever saying that.
When you
Yeah,
get
that
your
could-
letter,
that could be wrong.
when the port gets their money, we have got the 3 million. Did it say that we only could spend it on
That's
capital
a
improvement?
different
Because,
disbursement, isn't it? Or
why
is
would
that
it
the
be?
same?
It's the
Aaron
same.
gets CREZ money every year,
The
what's it
disbursements-
say?
Yeah,
What
what
does it say, Aaron?
The order says that. I look at the CREZ minutes and I don't think it was clear.
Okay.
If somebody put that on there, now, it's been an unspoken thing that you want money to go to capital, particularly that extra, we'll say 200 per city.
right.
BCDA and WICFED, and even when we give it to other people, I tell them, consider to put this towards your capital, however, give us a list, the CREZ wants to know what you spent the money on. And are we gonna go out and beat them up? No. Now, the CREZs 2 and 3 have said, we don't wanna dictate how you're gonna spend that money. I think we need to stand on that. Cause if they're gonna use it for community benefit, if it's gonna be CREZ money from WICFED that's gonna go to a daycare center, who cares? If that organization has designated it, why should the CREZ? Cause that's my understanding with the CREZ. They didn't wanna get in the weeds.
Absolutely. They
I
didn't
think
want to
these-
be like the old tipping fee program where you're given $4,000 for every project.
Or housing, that's not capital.
Right, and a lot of the projects don't fall into a capital
Yeah.
classification.
I kind of remember the old.
There's homebuyer program, but as far as the letter and who sends that, it would, I assume the letter comes from the city. The check.
I'm on the order and that needs to be correct.
ask me. Is it
Is
not simple that, enough that we ask the chair to write a letter to CREZ or, we all signed it to say, could you clarify, may we please use this for operating?
I think
Yes,
we do,
when-
yeah, we put it on the
When I
agenda.
look at the meeting minutes, it doesn't say capital, but the award letter says capital.
Yeah,
Yeah,
And since the meeting minutes are truncated,
ask for clarification.
I correct the orders. I need to correct it.
CREZ 2 is, we're coming up, in fact, I talked to the chairman and to Mike, Boardman about, we're coming up on a dispersion, distribution meeting.
On the other hand, optically, you want the money to go to capital improvements. You don't want to just fund managing
But a
for 5
capital-
years before we ever do anything.
But a capital improvement project always requires some administration.
Right.
So I think
Right.
that you could ask for it that way, so
Right.
maybe, and even the OHA
Yeah.
had, I believe they had an administration fee on the SEP was like 15% or 10% that they
Yeah.
were taking right
Yeah.
out of the top, so.
And it's not like we're talking about strangers, we're all in this enterprise zone group together.
I'm trying to think, I was the treasurer of WICFED for years. When it first started, I think we had an administrative fee. I remember, I thought, at that time, WICFED was getting $750,000. Seemed to me there was a 10% setback on that. But I could be wrong, but that was what mattered, but it was built in. But because I remember setting it aside. For administration.
So in order
Maybe you
for
could
you to
sit
go
down
forward, you just need us to find out how we're gonna balance the budget?
we'd like to, we need to identify revenues that can be used for operations.
Okay, I'm going to reach out to OHA about our SEP funds.
Okay.
And see
Yeah.
how we can get those.
Cause I think there's enough in this room, but I'm looking at the director or manager for the CREZ. if the vote was made, and it doesn't say, I think the orders need to be amended and corrected, so they don't say that. That's an easy fix without going back to the vote.
Right.
Go with what the governing body made a motion on to designate so much money.
Right.
If it said on that order, that is in contrary to what the vote said. If you want to vote to say something, you better be explicit or don't say it.
So I should go back and look.
Yes.
Okay,
And then
no,
get
I don't have a
corrected.
problem, I'll do that. No, no,
That's easy fix. If
I
it,
mean, I find it interesting and I'm not sure that we did say that, but,
you didn't, I looked at the.
but that's how we want to spend it.
Well,
Just remember that.
And that, like I said, since we have, Chris too only meets once a year, basically. And we do have our annual meeting coming up. Is that something you guys want on the agenda to address at that time?
Absolutely.
Yes,
Okay.
why these are written that way.
And, you know, so if we could correct that, just to give us flexibility, and again, for anybody listening, we're not looking to, you know, make this an administrative black hole here. We're looking just to keep it slim, you know, 90% of the kind of going to projects and that. But if we could also look at SCP just to allow a certain percentage or something like that using for administrative, I think that would be wise as well.
How much do we have in our budget right now? Did you say?
Well, 120 is the committed revenues that are available for operations. We've received monies in the other amount, but right now we're sitting there saying it can only be used for capital.
So when do we get invoices for the two, entities?
We sent those out, I think it was like in August or September is when we sent those out, $60,000 a piece.
Is there a fourth option? I know the business group is interested in funding capital projects when we don't have them well defined, they're conceptual at the moment. But is that an option to go to the business community? Maybe we
Well,
should-
Justin did approach, and that's the group you're talking about. Okay, Justin did approach, and Matt and I had a meeting. and
Justin
Mike-
Green.
Um,
Justin Green.
Yeah, is that the group you're talking about?
Mhm.
Okay, and he asked us, he specifically said, how can we help?
Okay.
And I think my thought has always been private is more flexible if you make a good case to them.
Right.
If you have a budget,
Uh-huh.
you know, and say, okay, this is where we have a hole. This is how we're gonna use it. That's the way I think you could approach them. you know?
Okay.
And I think they would, I would
Okay.
think that they might be really open to that.
And that's the one group, it's the business owner group, but there are
That's
others
not, there's
also.
probably more.
Yeah.
Huh.
And some you've mentioned to
But
me privately.
Like I've always said is, I think if you have it spelled out, they're much more receptive. You know, if you have a budget to put in front of them
Mhm.
and say, okay, we're gonna wanna use it for 3 years.
$7.5 million would cover everybody's well that tested that. in Morrow County.
How much?
7.5 million. Something like that much,
That's times what?
300 homes, I think they did,
Times what?
25,000,
25.
or did I do 20? Maybe I do the math again.
Not me.
25,000 times 300. 1.5. So that's $25,000 for every bad well in Morrow County, if it's over 10. 25,000.
No,
With the idea that will solve the issue.
Well,
Right. Right.
Good job. Just making sure. I mean, I'd love that. That's an
in 5 years, you know, do we predict that the nitrates have gone down 200 more feet? Probably.
Yeah.
That's not being unreal at all.
Nick,
My
is
mind.
it, if we were to get a budget together, identify the private groups, is that something you've had experience with that? Is that something you would, part of your, contract to help us put together a grant ask from private?
He's got a pretty much open contract that we give him a task. he can do it for us.
You got me already. You jumped right in there, didn't you?
I'll just elbow you out of the
Yeah,
way
yeah,
on that.
no.
Yeah, we give him the task to do that and
Any
he fills it.
indication of what they,
I mean, that's within your capacity.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of sent you that example from Project Path of, you know, is it a flyer? Is it you know, an essay is, you know, there's probably not with this private group a specific grant application, right? So it's really more of just a sales pitch,
Yes,
you know, so whether that's a PowerPoint or whatever, yeah, I'm happy to help with that and also to help, you know, what I call like project development, like what is it that we're gonna ask them?
exactly.
So I think that's really where I'm stuck is, what do you guys wanna try to fund?
Yeah.
And who, and then once we figure that out, that really informs who you ask, how you ask.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, I think that comes right from the budget, identify what our hole is in administration. And then identify, or you could look too, and we can all work on that, is which groups we might approach, and find out who to approach. You wanna make sure you approach the right person, or the one that could send you up the ladder high enough to get an answer. But that's something that, as Matt said, that's something you could do.
Yeah, I think the really, for me, the most important part of that is to identify the capital projects. So, you know, as we're kind of going around in circles, trying to figure out where to surgically kind of insert, you know, time, expertise and resources, right? So is it, you know, to continue to support West Glen and the Boardman extension? Is it to continue to support Oregon? Is it these domestic wells? I mean, maybe it's just all three of those and that it's just this generic, you know, pitch of these are the three categories of capital projects that we need these funds to support. If the pitch is just, we need $100,000 to hire a managing services director, I don't think that pitch has as much
No,
impact.
of course, but that's where we're looking at a whole.
Mhm.
So, you know, if they were familiar with us. And tell me, and you've done it a lot, why is it that grantors are shy away from administrative so much?
For the most part, grants will pay for administrative services, but they'll do it as a part of the project. So they'll say, here's the project, we'll give you 10 to 15% to administer it. Whereas just paying for operations in a vacuum is just not as attractive because
Yeah, understood. But how would we make it more attractive? We'd have the capital projects and we say, okay, we need some discretionary funds because this is where our budget hole is to make these capital projects happen.
Yeah, I think that, yeah, the pitch is like, hey, we need a managing services director to help manage the efforts in West Glen and this revolving loan. And, you know, to continue to go to these public meetings, but even that, right, kind of has to lead with something.
Yeah.
So I think that's a good approach.
Okay. Anything else? on the budget?
You said Justin Green, I know they have their annual members meeting December 2nd. I don't know if that's something we could put together fairly soon and kind of maybe have a presentation at their meeting. With their members, it might be a little soon to.
What do you think? Is that too soon?
For a presentation and then ask.
It's an annual meeting, yeah,
It's their annual members meeting.
H2OEL.
Do you know where that's
It's
located?
gonna be in Hermiston at the Rotary Club.
I mean, that's something that we could at least go and present what we are doing
Oh,
and what
okay.
our outreaches are and
Okay.
just saying we look forward to continued support and just kind of give a report
Kind of a hello,
yeah.
meet you, okay, yeah.
to
that
kind
might-
of formally introduce ourselves to the body.
And then come back with specifics at a later date. And,
Would that be helpful?
Yes, definitely.
all right. Anything else on our
Um,
black hole administrative budget?
I think that's the non-black hole. The next one is moving into consideration of the managing director services RFP. Nick and I have worked out an RFP, which was based off a template that was used for some Loguama work there. We've got that ready and I just want to report on it, we took the job description that I had presented the last time, incorporated that as the services with some tweaks on there. What we'd like to do is get that posted tomorrow if we can, and we'd like to post that, if it's all right, on the county website in its entirety, and also have that in the port and get it out to other groups and areas where it can be fully viewed. We would have the RFPs due back right before Christmas. And then Nick and I would do an internal review of those, make sure we have qualified candidates. And then we would bring, likely, the qualified candidates, we'd send that out to you as the board a week or so in advance of the January 13th meeting in order for you to score those, and then we could review those in the January 13th meeting. If interviews would be necessary, we would then either set up a special meeting or set up to have that taken care of the next week, and with the final contract negotiated and awarded by our February 10th Clean Water Consortium meeting. And so that's kind of the time frame for it. I know it was brought up at the last meeting to make sure there was some consideration for local experience or local ties in the scoring matrix, which is based on 100 points. One of it, a full 20 points of that is based on the requirement to demonstrate history working with Morrow County Clean Water Consortium and or public entities in Eastern Oregon. So just to make sure that they are familiar with the ideas and the unique nature of rural Oregon and where we're at compared to other realities.
The consortium's only been around for
only been
3 months, so that's a pretty hard,
High bar.
stuff, yes.
So that's why we put the and or public entity. So if they
So what was the other part?
and or public entities in Eastern Oregon.
Public entities.
So that could be cities, counties, districts, ports, to understand the lay of the land and
A
the,
rough crowd.
well, I wouldn't say rough crowd, but the unique challenges.
Bureaucratic crowd.
What's the purpose of putting the 3D logos on those? I mean, they need to know exactly that they're not working for all three.
Well, that's fine. That was just me putting them in there.
We can just put the Clean Water Consortium.
I think. So they go, okay. I have one boss.
Yes. So if you're all right with that time frame, I mean, the RFP does go for a good 11 pages. But if that's all right, we'd like to get that posted and see if we can do this. Since we don't have the budgetary considerations, we're hoping we can get that taken care of by January before consideration of this. And so that's why we'd like to still proceed with this RFP.
What research is going in to decide what the cost for this person's gonna be?
Yeah.
So part of this is an RFP, so they are going to propose how much their billable hours are. And so, and what their considerations are. So we're asking them to do.
But I'm saying from our standpoint, what are we going to judge it on, say, you know, a baseline or a touchstone or whatever you wanna call it, you know? You know, is this unreasonable? How many hours, whatever, however we're going to look at what they're gonna cost. The black hole, is it gonna be billable hours or is it gonna be a retainer? And then do we have something to compare it to and say, okay, you know, this, you see what I'm saying?
Right, and what I would propose is we will take the proposals in and Nick and I will meet and kind of diagram out pros and cons on that and then give you some recommendations on how those vet out. If we have a firm coming in, it's gonna be a billable hour setup.
Right.
If it's gonna be an individual with some good experience on that, it might be a monthly stipend of X amount that they're looking to do.
Okay.
And so I wouldn't wanna come in and say, we want it this approach this way, because we could have different types of entities applying and may have strengths and weaknesses
Yeah.
either way.
But when we bring something to the board and they go, okay, this is our billable hours. Is there an example that would show a similar place? I mean, like I know that broadband, I think Nick charges $250, I think.
Mhm.
So, I mean, is there? It's a double thing, I think, no, it's probably.
It's public comment, yeah. public.
But you know, you see what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Something to say, okay, this seems reasonable, or this seems normal, you know, a billable hour for a person like this.
I think what we would do is look at some samples of engineering project managers, kind of get some comparables on that. Would you have any other suggestions on?
Well, I mean, I think
Comparable rates.
it's probably gonna be $125 to $250 an hour at 10, really probably 5 to 20 hours a week. And I think there's gonna be some real up and down as far as how much there is to do for this person. Like, once a project gets up and running, or there's things to administer, there's gonna be a lot of time spent. But I think there's also gonna be a lot of down months, so, I mean, I think just without seeing all of this and just kind of brainstorming, my thought is a not to exceed monthly amount with an hourly rate. This is, you don't go over this amount without permission. But if something comes up and it's, you know, everybody's gotta go, and that's your support capacity, right? Then the board says, hey, this month, you know, you have a new limit or something, you know, but I think that is some good guardrails just to give them an idea of, you know, there will be regular work. Sometimes it will be more and sometimes it'll be less. And you also want someone who's available when there is more work to be done, right?
Right.
It isn't just
Right.
planning on an hour or
Right.
2 a week or
Sure.
something.
And billable hours takes care of that issue.
Yeah, I think so.
It does, it's in my mind,
Mhm.
because it takes care of the fluctuation.
So the scoring will be by the board. We're gonna be making sure that
Are you going to be advisory board?
no,
Okay.
this is the four with the board. Unless you'd like to have, I mean, I don't think we specify the limitations of that. My idea was to have the board score it because this person would be directly reporting to you. If you wanted to expand that, I'm sure there's consideration to do so if you'd
I
like
just
to.
wanted to be careful that you guys aren't advising us. When you said you were gonna go through them together and
I
kind
think
of,
kind of what you're thinking of is we're looking to make sure they have answered all the minimum requirements. Do they have their insurance? Do
Okay.
they answer all the
Yes.
sections? Do they have their cover letter? Do they have contact? Do they
Minimum
sign the form? Kind of putting those all together.
but you're not gonna make any recommendations to us.
And we look at all 30 or 40 applications.
If we get that many, you get to read. them.
Right.
All except the ones who didn't sign it, do the things. I mean, if there's just, for lack of a better term, some chuck in the truck kind of approach on things, we're gonna say, here's your 5 that are qualified. We disqualified these. They're available for your consideration, but we would say that these are qualified. These were the total applicants.
Can we think of 5 applicants we might have?
I would love to see if we got a bunch. I don't know what we'll have. I know of a couple entities that are there. I'm sure we'll have more than a couple. So there will be consideration for y'all to look at.
I think you might get 3 to 6.
What,
Yeah.
Where are you gonna advertise, like Oregon,
what are we required, where are we required to
like a
advertise?
broad circulation, like the Oregon Business Journal, Daily Journal of Commerce, Portland. I don't know what's.
There's a bit, they're talking about the Portland Business Daily or whatever. I think they're connected to that Oregon Daily Journal Commerce. And then the 2 sites, and I mean, my thought too is typically I tried after it's out to send it to a bunch of people too. Just kind of,
Individuals, good, yeah,
and then,
yeah.
you know, maybe that's Matt does that and just circulate it out to, I know Matt's talked to 1 or 2 people. I've, you know, heard from 1 or 2 people that were interested and make sure they see it as soon as it comes out,
Sure.
but only once it's out.
Yeah, there's this organization called NEBC, National Environmental Business Council, and it has, I think everybody's involved with water in that, so that's another, I don't really have a contact, but I trust you to know where it's broadly published, so I think we'll get some.
Yeah, so
Bare minimum, where are we required to post it?
bare minimum requirements is we'd have to put it on our website, which we don't have one, so we'll be using the county ones to post the whole RFP also on reports. I would like to put a comment in our papers of record, which would be East Oregonian and the county papers. That would be the bare minimum. There's also a state posting thing for like notices and that we could put something there as well. But we're really gonna try to work on getting to the firms and the associations that represent those technical firms that would be best provide us the respondents.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't want to do the minimum.
Yeah.
I just wanted to make sure we were covered.
Okay, anything else on the managing director RFP?
Outside of changing those logos, I think it's a fairly straightforward. We do need to add the specific one where the host RFP will be, but we can take care of it.
And this includes the typical clause that says if nobody is qualified, we don't have to hire somebody, and then if we don't have
You
money.
can reject everything,
We can
start
reject
over,
everything, start
burn in a
over.
bonfire,
Yeah,
whatever
okay.
you choose.
Okay,
Are you good with it, Lisa? I haven't had time to really.
yeah,
have it.
no, I'm good with it.
And Tamara, this is the phase one study RFP. We just simplified it. So this is the one that GSI.
It looks kind of familiar. Okay, okay.
Okay,
Copy and paste.
with that, we'll get the
Oh, gosh.
logos, put in the
Read
website. and we'll get
these
that
every
posted.
time.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on. Our last item is a West Glen community update.
Just wanted to give some small updates on West Glen. With the feasibility study, I know Grace is on here and she's working on just getting the compilation of the notes so we can get that posted on the website. Also, I am running a Spanish translation for the engineering feasibility. I'm gonna put that through some of our county employees to certify that the translation makes sense. And we'll get that posted once we have that. I'm hoping to have that done before our next meeting. Also, I have reached out to Oregon Rural Action, who is kind of directing the West Glen United. We've made a commitment during that last community outreach meeting to meet with them on a smaller scale. Kristen said that they're still determining their representatives. But as we look at that, we'll be looking for a meeting sometime in December to sit down and meet. We'd like to have members of the advisory committee there, and I'll be reaching out to those to see what their availabilities are as well. I will note one of the things that Kristen relayed was they want to sit down with the decision makers. Well, as we go through, we want to vet some things and go through those and work towards that direction, and this is what we can do. So I do want to just acknowledge that point as from her discussions with me. Also, just wanted to give note to this board. Morrow County has received funding from OHA for additional staffing.
Before you move on from that, the question I thought after that is, are we restricting ourselves to only talking to one group? I mean, we should be able to talk to anybody we want in West Glen.
And I apologize because I misunderstood. I thought that you were getting ready to start having smaller group meetings, not a bunch of meetings with a small group.
No, we are going to be looking into it. In fact, we've talked about, because this West Glen United seems to represent a specific interest in West Glen. There's Paul Smith that has different people, and we want to engage them and have discussions and make sure things.
I think
things
we
look
should
good.
be able to talk to anybody we want out there.
Of course,
Okay.
I'm not limiting to the West Glen United group, but I had made that commitment during that community outreach meeting, so I just wanted to show that we are following up on that commitment. So
If you're not part of that group, we're not gonna listen to it. We will listen to anybody.
Yes.
of course, yes, and so definitely.
Some things you can't do in a big group. Some conversations you can't get much business done in a big group.
Yeah.
It's time to get to business, I think.
I know a lot that we had that discussion about having our advisory board committee members meet with people, but I'm scared that they don't have any knowledge because they haven't been here. And to put them out there giving, Karen spoke up at the port meeting yesterday and said, we've got to have facts and they have to be correct. And until you have those facts, you're building distrust, basically. And I'm not sure that our advisory group, I mean, Isabel is the only one that's been here, maybe one other one at a time, is the right group to meet with those folks. I'm afraid those folks know more than our advisory group does. So it's, you know, it's, they want answers and they want facts. And, you know, to meet with them and chit chat is, you know, perfectly fine to build that rapport. But if we don't have good answers, then we're going backwards.
We need costs.
Okay,
We need approvals.
anything else on West Glen community?
The last item is, just reporting Morrow County received additional funds for, a lead community, health outreach activities. In the Loboma areas of the county, we have one who's there already. We received grants, the county's, acted on that. And, we'll be looking to bring in additional FTE, approval before the board December 3rd. And so we've got the monies approved. We'll be looking to see what we can do about bringing that, just to make sure as we do these outreach activities, we have additional staffing. That's on the county public health side, but it's just acknowledgement of cooperation between the state and the county. That's all that I have for those updates.
Okay, I guess, could I circle back to the budget just for a second? When do you think we're going to? What's our process? We're gonna approve a budget, get a budget, approve a budget, what are we gonna?
Yes, we do have the process that we have, that we need to post it, have it available and posted for 2 weeks. The advisory committee and the board are both members of that according to the policy that was adopted. And so I just need to make sure that we have revenue that can be used
We have to
for
balance it
operations.
first.
And so I do have a draft budget that I'd be happy to share with you, send to you. It's a little bit rough, but it's assuming operational monies that are available.
Well,
Yeah.
could, based on our discussion here, you don't have to identify the actual, income for the operational funds, can you? I mean, you can use a generic term, can't you?
I think to approve a budget, you have to know certain inputs and outputs.
You have to know,
Yeah,
You can't spend money you don't receive and you can't, yeah, you have
spend
to
money on
budget
stuff
for it.
that
You
you-
can over budget. But
but aren't budgets made up all the time anticipating revenue?
But
It's not guaranteed.
But there's always the color of money is which money can you use for which pots. And
Yeah.
right now we are
Oh,
constrained.
no, I totally agree on
Yeah.
that part. I'm just saying,
That's what we're waiting.
That's on the spending side, though.
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
you know, if we get a budget and we should, if we're going to private funds to have a budget in front of us to identify what our hole is, doesn't need to say, okay, this particular private entity. we're
Oh, no.
going to- Okay,
No.
then we have a tool in front of us with a goal,
Mhm.
to take out and try to reach that goal.
Yeah, I don't think we put any of that into the budget. The budget was just the money that we've received and the money that we're spending, but not,
The draft budget I do does exceed the 120. With anticipation of using some of these other items for operational
but I
expenditures.
was saying what he was saying was that he thought that the budget might have, we need 700 and
Oh, no,
some odd $1 million.
not at that.
Where,
Most of the budget was engineering,
Yeah.
additional public outreach. And so we have, what's looking at about a $300,000 budget to cover costs for operations with, money for engineering and.
No, I'm not talking about capital. I'm
You
not,
can't get $700.
I'm not talking about capital expenditures right now in the budget at all. I'm talking about operational, which is our front and center issue right at this point. Because we don't know capital improvement costs at this point.
That's true. And
So that's what I was thinking. I'm not saying we need to identify where the funding is gonna go. I'm not even talking about capital improvement part of it. I'm talking about our immediate problem is administrative hole to fill. If we're going to commit to a manager, we better come up with the money, how we're gonna pay it. Early. And,
Yes.
right, so to me,
Too many pronouns.
that's the part
That.
that we need to have laid out
Tired of
in
it.
order
I'm
to
just
find
kidding.
out.
I know, it's fine.
Our, capital improvement is, unknown at this point.
Oh, yeah, of course. And so,
Non-binary.
So as soon as Lisa gets the information back to you, you'll know if you can cover the budget and it will actually balance.
yes,
Okay. So we're just waiting
Mhm.
on Lisa to get that
Mhm.
direction and
Mhm.
maybe a direction from you to find out on the CREZ dollars.
I'm going to, and I'm gonna research what we have, but it might be something that we need to talk about at our CREZ 2 meeting. And
Yeah,
then CREZ 3 too.
definitely, because I'm gonna tell you, I'm really worried about having a lot of expenses in managing a program without any capital improvements being done. I want to do, we need to fix, we need to do projects.
Yeah, I agree.
Problem is we need that managing person to be able to coordinate that project.
I do, but at what
And it's
point
not
does
a-
that really need to
It's not
start?
really a lot of money. I don't think we're.
I would just say that you actually don't need that managing person to do projects. I do that. So I'm looking for projects. Kind of another thing that I will say is that I don't really know what I'm supposed to be doing the next month. So if I need to be developing projects, I mean, whether it's more money for West Glen, whether it's more money for Irrigan, whether it's this domestic well stuff, those are the projects. I don't have a real task on developing those projects. I've been focused on the funding, but that's also a part of what I do is to get the things funded, you have to develop it and put it in a box, right? And you don't need a managing director for that. I can do that.
Okay.
But I just need some direction of, what are some, because I think we're all kind of going around the same spoke, which is what is the capital project? And I have the same question of as far as what I can focus on the next, 2 months.
Okay.
Which I guess Ronan's helping us parse those out, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, so
So
if
I
it's
would
just.
say the next month or so, and you're kind of in a holding pattern until we can get that information, but that information is actually out there. I mean, if Ronan can't get it together fast enough and we can just do an average or a estimate, I think that's a huge start. We don't have to be so precise that we overthink this when we have it. 300 homes need
Okay.
something.
But-
Right, but we have two municipalities mixed in with those 300 homes, right?
Maybe.
We don't have 300 outside of the.
I think by
municipality.
January, Ronan will have a decent number for
Okay,
us.
all right.
At least better ballpark,
Okay.
yeah.
Yeah, that includes those municipalities, so.
I think it's a one-up with having. Nick and
194
Robin have a
plus West Glen.
Working relationship.
Yeah, it is
As far as
300.
preliminary.
Okay.
Okay, anything else, sir?
that's all.
Okay, any other business?
I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, Karen.
Okay, I stated yesterday, this is a personal comment, so it has nothing to do with the city of Boardman, so I want that to be clear. But I think that you should not have another meeting with anybody. I don't think you should have a meeting in December with anybody until you have talked to the city of Boardman and they have given you a figure of what your price of water or what kind of maybe organization we could come to agreement on. Because I think you're making worse. Your PR is getting so bad, it is just impossible. That when you go out and quote prices and they change every time you have a meeting and you get these people all listening, well, they're not gonna trust you. I mean, they've already decided that if you show up, I'll come because maybe you'll say something, but this changing the story every time is shooting yourself in the foot. So I would hesitate for you to continue to go out and do your outreach until at least after the first of the year, when you have some figures and maybe you can put together a real package that would mean something to people that are wanting to hear, because I'm gonna tell you, if I lived in West Glen, you're not gonna come and tell me $30 one time and 69 the other, and I'm not, and I might wanna put a lien on my house or whatever so that's all I have to say, and like I
Let me
say,
ask you something on that, because I kind of have the same thing too. Is there a method or vehicle that you would see to nail down the credibility of the information they got, rather than just
oh,
a verbal? Is there some?
well, you know me, I would be a 4-line, it would take me 2 paragraphs and about 30 seconds to go out and say, here, I got a deal for you,
Yeah,
and this is the deal. And I would have my figures out
yeah,
here.
but who would be saying that? Who, one of this group, the city?
It's up to us
It's
now.
not gonna be the city. They're never gonna get involved in this.
Yeah, okay, so it's gonna be somebody from this group.
Yes, and you're sending Mike out, or Mike, I'm sorry,
Matt.
Matt, to take all the
No.
arrows,
You're, okay, Karen, I think you're wrong.
huh?
I think you're wrong. I think it does involve the cities too. I think that city manager needs to go with this group. If we're talking about extending services from the city out to that neighborhood.
But you're asking that to happen ahead of,
I understand. Yeah,
of any kind of direction
Yeah.
from the city council.
yeah.
If the city council had ever talked about this yet, but we've never had a meeting. We finally got the paperwork last month. We've not discussed it, period.
And do you know when that's happening, Karen?
No, I don't
Okay.
know. I don't
Okay.
know whether it's in, well, we've had our November meeting.
I think it's the December meeting.
Yeah, it must be the December meeting. And that's why I'm.
That's when you discuss the rates. Is that correct? Is that what you're talking
Rate
about?
studies.
Rate discussion?
And that's why I would put it off, any meeting off until at least January. So you can, because you'll have a time to meet again with this group and get your story. Decide. You guys are worried about all money and all the things, and what you've got to really get down to is, let's decide what our story is and what we can really do about it. If there's nothing I can do about it, I don't know. If $1 million, if I can only do 20 people to start with, and I have to worry about the next 20, then start with the 20. But your story's got to get straighter than it is.
Which is why we've concentrated on West Glen, because it's 100 homes.
Right.
Well, the West Glen area.
And if nobody wants to go with you, then like you say, then you're gonna move to the next section that says, yes, I'd like to take advantage of these things you're offering. Because really and truly, the things that you guys are willing to offer is a big deal. If you're a private person putting this stuff in, this is a big deal to you. So, and somebody needs to say that. I mean, when they ask me, I always tell them, well, just hooking up, just that actual hookup fee is $2,581, and we're probably the lowest one in the state, to do your SDCs. So take advantage. I mean, there's a lot of reasons you'd want to listen to if you get all your information together at one time, but it has to be pretty short.
Right. Short, understandable, right to the point. Gotcha.
But the city of Boardman's willingness to extend into West Glen, has that been approved by the council?
No, we've not talked about any of this.
Okay.
And that's why I'm so upset with the fact that.
I would beg to differ with you on that, Karen. I went to the Boardman City Council. The particulars have not been established or agreed upon. But during each of the 3 meetings, including one with Chair Sykes there, the city council said, yes, we're very willing to consider this to help out West Glen area. Now, the specifics have not been taken care of, and we've always offered more or less the highest rate that was published by the city of Boardman on water rates. And so I totally agree that there is a gap that needs to be crossed, and some of that's just been delays on the water rate study and some of the other things. And I agree with you, maybe waiting after the first year, the new year to allow some of this to settle down a little bit better might be best, of
Well, and I don't expect you to agree with me just because I have an opinion.
course.
I mean, that's not.
But, I mean, but just to say that we haven't approached the city
No,
council.
I'm not
is-
saying that, but I'm saying that we as a council, have not looked at those figures. We've not had any comments.
Mhm.
You know, I mean, the garbage company came and gave us
Oh, yes.
Song and dance.
a new recycling order, so yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway, I just thought I'm, rather than let the rumor mill go around with what I think, I'm just gonna tell you what I think.
Okay, we appreciate that. Come back and do it again.
Oh, you know.
I know,
Don't ever
we
give
know,
me enough.
yeah, don't ever, there's no way we can ever stop that. Okay. Anything else, any other business? Okay, we'll adjourn then. Thank you.
Dinner.